Aloha! Thank you for tuning into another episode of Love What with Audrey Weilai, where I ask my friends and mentors what non-romantic love means to them. And today I'm so honored to have Chad Drayton as my guest. He taught me how to fly a helicopter, an intro course. Hi, Chad.
Hi, how's it going? Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you so much. Could you tell us a little bit about yourself?
My name is Chad Drayton. I was born in Kenya. My parents were pretty extraordinary people. They were sailing around the world and had me on the boat as a kid. Kenya is where they happened to be at the time. So we
Hmm.
pulled into a creek in Mombasa and then were there for about 4 years. Then we moved to South Africa for school, and I went to school and university in Cape Town for pretty much most of my current adult life. High school 12 years, then 5 years doing finance and accounting. And then to summarize, my parents both died relatively suddenly in a short period of time. So I thought I'd do something a bit more fun and interesting than accounting. So I went into flying, and that's led to a lot of things for sure.
You flew in Africa and also Hawaii. That's where we met. And also in Alaska, right?
Yeah, so I started out in Cape Town and then I went and did some anti-poaching and then did a little bit of flying in the UK, which was interesting. So I started in
Yes.
Cape Town with my private license and I stayed in Cape Town for kind of just doing it on off now and then for fun and went to Kenya and flew there for a bit doing some anti-poaching and conservation. I just bounced around because then I was like, okay, I need my commercial license. And then I went to Hawaii to Kona and did my license
Mm,
and then went back to Africa. I couldn't find much work.
yes.
So I then went back to Hawaii to finish my Hawaii because I lived there. So I need to say it right. And then went back there and then kind of spent 5 or 6 months instructing and flying some tours as well on Kona. And then I got offered to go to Kauai, which was incredible. And that's where I met my fiance. We
Yes.
flew together in a company there. Then I was Alaska for 6 months and then Grenada in the Caribbean for 6 months. Now Mongolia for so far 2-ish months. And I think we'll be here till November.
Wow. I have so many questions. One is, what was it like to fly for anti-poaching in Africa?
It was extraordinary. And I think it's been very hard to top as a career to have. Everything else that I've done since then has been just less meaningful and trivial in a way. It's been just paying clients and big corporate mines or tourists. It's been much less meaningful to me, which is probably lends itself to a bit of dissatisfaction in the flying because even though I'm in amazing places and flying amazing machines, I think if you're not doing something meaningful with your flying, like anything in life, it loses its luster a little bit.
And what did you do when you were flying for anti-poaching?
We were mainly doing animal control so there's a lot of human wildlife conflict in Africa between a lot of villages will have farmland and the elephants come and they knock down the fences and steal the millies. And then you'll have a lot of poachers that are kind of harming the animals. They have these guns from the 90s, like old muzzle loading
Wow.
muskets, and they'll shoot the animals. And it's extraordinary, actually. The people will just follow the animal until it dies for days. So the animal dies a very painful, slow death. A lot of the time, we'll move in and fix the wound and cauterize the wound and take out the spear tip or the bullet. We'll also
Yeah.
just chase the animals out of the areas they shouldn't be in. If they are near
Okay.
the village, we'll kind of just force them away from the village. Then taking
Mm,
anti-poaching patrols, flying guys out to areas where they can do the work that they need to do and make a difference. That's the main kind of scope. And flying investors
mm.
now and then.
Do you see a solution to poaching? Because they need to feed their families, right?
For
So
sure.
are there other job sources that people can create for them?
Do you want the realistic answer or the optimistic answer?
No, I want the real one
Yeah.
because there's demand in the
Mm.
illegal wildlife trade.
There's two big differences in the kind of reasons for poaching. There's small scale subsistence poaching, which is usually just for animal meat. Then there's the large scale poaching, which is usually animal traffic products like ivory and rhino horn and leopard genitalia and things like that. So long story short, I think the subsistence poaching is going to be almost impossible to stop in Africa. There's such a huge demand and there's so much poverty. You'd have to solve poverty in Africa to solve subsistence poaching. I don't see that happening. I think, of
Mm.
course, the kind of cliche thing is raise awareness. I think that there are some positives to that, and for sure it has had change and caused good in some areas, especially along the coast with fishing. They've managed to
Yes.
stop people from pulling out the really small fish, but that's just part of the cultural existence of Africa. It's going to be very tough to get rid of that, both economically and culturally. But it's like the mob-based syndicates of the rhino horn and the elephant ivory. Elephant ivory, not such a big thing
Mm.
anymore, but pangolin shells and that kind of thing, in my opinion, is also interesting because in order to stop that, you need to kill the demand. And the problem is the demand is
Mm.
so vast. It's all of
Yes.
Asia. It's almost
Mm.
impossible to create awareness in Asia and stop people demanding this product because it's just been part of their belief for a long time. That's the one side of it. The other side is there's a lot of money involved. So there's a huge amount of, I don't have the stats with me now, but it's millions of
Yes.
dollars for small amounts of rhino horn. So
Mm.
very, very difficult to stop that as well. The problem is maybe the focus is more on if you think of the poaching as a tree and the actual
Mm.
individuals that are hunting the animals are the very last branches and leaves, the focus is
Yeah.
being placed on that. And of course, that's necessary, but
Mhm.
we need to focus on the main limbs of the tree
Demand.
and cut those off and find who is the primary distributor or transporter of that from Africa to Asia. It's like Medusa. If you cut off one head, another one is just going to pop up. Unfortunately, yeah,
Yeah.
that's my relatively bleak outlook on it. But just because it's
Mhm.
bleak doesn't mean it's not worth pursuing. You have to attack the problem from both sides, both on the ground in Africa and then also in the places where the goods are going.
Yeah, I went to school for acupuncture, and
Oh.
during the entire program in the school in Beijing, they never taught us to prescribe things like pangolin scales
Mm,
or manta ray plates. So
mm.
I was really shocked to learn that people in the Chinese market were buying those things and buying into the lies how they can heal.
Yeah.
Like pangolin scale is really just like fingernail material.
Yeah, and rhino horn too. I mean, and when you think of the problem is that just the vastness of Asia, even if it's 0.0001% of the population, if you times that by, I don't know, 1 billion, 2, 3, then all of a
Yeah.
sudden it's still a big number that is causing the demand, sadly.
So what can we do as individuals to help?
It's very difficult for an individual in America or in any Western country that naturally condemns this kind of thing to
Mm.
make an influence either in Africa or in Asia where the problem is. But I think the answer in Africa is more simple. It's just funding the organizations that make a difference. And I know a couple, Dave Sheldrick Wildlife Trust or the Roteti Elephant Fund. I mean, charitable organizations are a whole nother kind of can
Yeah.
of worms because how much of your donated money is actually getting to the cause in need. But for Westerners in Africa, it's very tough to actually make a difference because it's such a subterranean thing. Like the poaching
Mm.
syndicates are very difficult to infiltrate. So for sure, just researching, raising awareness, and if at any stage you do come across a person that is involved in any of it, make the
Yeah.
most fuss you've ever made in your life to try and bring up how wrong it is and how scientifically it's just absurd. The same applies in Asia.
Mm.
It's very difficult what can you get on a plane and jump around in Beijing and say, stop using animal products? I mean, that's just going to amuse people, if anything. Unfortunately, I think with such a vast task, it's probably needed to just entrust people that are dedicated to it and just need funding. Most people involved in this kind of thing are in it because they love and care about animals. And,
Yes.
everyone's on a spectrum and everyone will profiteer from it in some way.
Mm. Yeah. You have a photo with the rhino in the distance. What happened there?
So the rhinos are pretty interesting. You get black and white rhinos, and the black ones are known as being very kali, which in Swahili means angry, feisty, tempestuous, not something you want to deal with. But The white rhino
Yes.
is far more calm and relaxed. It's known as like a cow, really, with a horn. So basically, the white rhino is extremely relaxed. We actually went on a trail when I was in grade 10, so 16, called the White Rhino Trail. And
Mm.
you walk through the bush for 7 days and you stalk the rhinos and you're just in nature with them. And the guides are actually um, local African guys who've spent their whole lives in the bush. Bushman is not a politically correct term anymore, because that's a very
Mhm.
broad kind of grouping for a very diverse and different sect of people. People who have grown up in the wild, living off off nature. They're extremely in tune, so they can, you know,
Mm.
get you very close to the rhino and get you in a position where you can actually appreciate the animal for its what it is, because from a game drive vehicle, it's very different. Behind glass,
Mm.
behind doors. So yeah, that's that story.
That's great. And what took you to Mongolia?
So a guy that I met at a flight school many years ago, I've
Mm.
always wanted to go to Mongolia. I've always been intrigued by the vastness and the culture and the history. Genghis and Kublai Khan and the Mongol hordes, extraordinary history. So when I saw this guy was flying in Mongolia, I thought, wow. So I messaged him and I said, is there any chance you have a job? And at the time he didn't. I think this was a year or two ago. Then I messaged him again, maybe 6 or 7 months ago, and he said, yeah, we're looking for pilots. And I don't think I asked anything about wages or living conditions. I just said, I'm coming. So that's how it started. And so far, it's been really lovely. The people are very welcoming and kind. The food is
Mm.
terrifying at first. It looks like dirty water with kind of gross pieces of thing floating around, but
Oh my God.
actually, yeah, very, very tasty, funny enough. The
Mm.
helicopters are beautiful and very new, and their flying is quite interesting and quite varied. So it's been a great time so far.
Do you do tours?
Not really. We do charters and mine transport and government
Okay.
transport. So various government ministers to events and things like that. And then mine workers to the various mines around the country.
Yes.
And some wealthy individuals that just want to go to lakes for the afternoon or hotels for a few days, that kind of thing.
Cool. And what's the main difference flying in, say, Hawaii versus Alaska or Mongolia?
The crazy thing about Hawaii was, and Kauai as well, especially, was the variation. You had obviously the windward and leeward side of the islands are so different because of the different amount of rainfall that at one time you're showing people white sand beaches and beautiful lush green forests, and then on the other side you're showing people quite dry, barren canyons. And then,
Mm.
of course, the Nepali coast is just world renowned and just out of this world. We were doing tours there. So tours get repetitive, unfortunately. When you're doing the same thing 7 times a day, no matter how
Mm.
beautiful it is, it gets tiring. But we
Yeah.
had a lot of freedom there, which was nice. So we could kind of do our own tour route and show people what we thought they would enjoy the most, which was really nice. But then we were flying
Mm.
Robinsons, and Robinsons are these small little four-seater helicopters and
Yes.
technically quite dangerous. If you want to go down a rabbit hole, Google mast bumping Robinsons, and you'll see
My
why.
God.
And very turbulent air, which is bad for mast bumping. So that was kind of not ideal about Hawaii. Then we go to Alaska, my fiance Sam and I, and we fly these lovely aircraft called A-Stars, which a lot of helicopter enthusiasts will know about. They are
Mm.
not much more stable in turbulence. Initially, we absolutely loved Alaska. It's so beautiful. And we were there from when it was snowing to when it was spring to when it was full-blown summer. It was awesome.
Mm.
We didn't realize just how repetitive the tours there were. You were flying exactly the same route, and you were kind of criticized by the other pilots if you were flying a little bit too high or too low or too far or too back. It was
Wow.
very kind of nanny type stuff, which was very frustrating for Sam and I, having come from Hawaii, where we had this amazing freedom to do
Mm.
whatever we want and fly however we want. And there's some regulations there as to how
Yes.
you can fly, but nothing like Alaska. And the regulations were legal regulations in Hawaii, whereas in Alaska, they were just company policy. It was a cool experience, and we bought this RV and drove it up from Utah to Alaska, which was really
Yeah.
fun. Yeah, and then Grenada was back in the Robinsons, which we were not too
Mm.
happy about. And it was a new
Well,
company,
that
so
was the one I was in for my
yes,
intro
yes, you were
course.
in the death trap.
You
No,
didn't tell me.
yeah, no, I'm joking. It really is. It's something that people need to do their own research about and decide for themselves. There is a certain input that if you do it in that aircraft, it's going to end very badly for everyone in there. There's certain reservations we have about that. Grenada was, we loved the island, we loved the lifestyle. There was surfing and diving, and we made some lovely friends. But the company was new and was going through a lot of teething things. That was
Mm.
quite stressful for us. We were playing a lot more a role than just pilots. Then the Mongolia thing came up, and it was a no-brainer for us. And we love the aircraft here. They're all brand new machines. I'm flying in a twin engine, which is nice because I've also been interested in search and rescue, and most of the search and rescue helicopters are twin engines. So it's good to start getting a bit of that time. And we also,
Yeah.
the flying is very varied. So every day we're doing different stuff, landing in different places, flying different people, which is interesting. It's been a little bit quiet just for this bit of the season as things start to get going. Those have been the main differences, I think, just freedom and type of aircraft and of course type of flying as well.
Yeah. And what's after Mongolia? Do you know?
We're undecided. We are considering going back to the Caribbean. There are a number of things that we're just kind of figuring out before we make that decision. And then the other big one is New Zealand. We've always wanted to go to
Wow.
New Zealand. Sam has always looked at these flowers called lupines.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's another thing you can go and Google. It's extremely beautiful. We go to New Zealand on holiday and convert our licenses because license conversions can be a very onerous task. It can take months, if not years, sometimes, depending where you go.
My.
So we go there on holiday, and we've actually got a 2-year contract in Mongolia. So we go there on holiday and then come back
Mhm.
for
Yeah.
another 6 to 9 months, and then go back to New Zealand kind of permanently on a 2 or 3 year working visa
Wow.
if
That's
we like it.
great.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. I hear it's beautiful there and people
Yeah.
are really nice.
Yeah. The thing that's funny is we're a little bit scared that it'll be Alaska round two. Because if you look at both
Mm.
from the top, they both have these tours which they fly into the glaciers. And 30-minute tours, it could be exactly the same thing, which is just doing the
Mm.
same thing over and over again, 7 times a day. But we'll see. Time will tell.
Okay. Keep me posted.
Yeah,
Hmm.
absolutely.
Okay, so besides romantic love, what does love mean to you?
I think besides romantic love, I guess love for me is just maybe realizing that there's a much bigger picture to your life. There's all the other people that are connected to your life, and the way you act and the way you treat the people in your life, friends that you love, has a big effect on their lives. I don't have much familial love because of my parents passing away and not having any other
Mm.
real family except for two alcoholic aunts.
Yes.
Don't let them watch this. No, but yeah, so I guess that's and also love is this is such a weird question for me, but it's maybe
Mm.
creating meaning in life in what matters to you. I believe in the philosophy of it's called optimistic nihilism. So it's like nothing matters, but that you make things matter. So whatever matters to you, like who cares if the pangolin dies? Like in the bigger picture of evolution
Mm.
in the world and history, it's not the end of the world, but to the people that care about the pangolin and the citizens of that
Yes.
country and anyone who loves nature, to those people, it does matter a lot. And they can shape a very meaningful, full life around saving the pangolin or the tree frog or anything that means something to them. There's a beautiful thing that my friend Jamie, she's a very good friend of mine from South Africa, and she said that we place too much focus on romantic love, and like it's all of these shows from Disney. It's like, oh, you're gonna meet your princess and get married and be happy, but
Mm.
like there's so many other loves in the world of your passions and of your friends. She argues that you should focus more on those loves first.
Mm. Mm. And where's your love for nature and flying tie into all this?
And my long-term goal is to go back to Africa and fly in anti-poaching. I love flying. I have from a young age. I've got a funny photo framed where it's me drawing a bunch of helicopters, and then my aunt framed my first solo in a little
Wow.
Polaroid. Yeah, it's definitely something I've been passionate about for a long time, but my dad always said, if you make your career your passion, you'll lose both. I think that will happen to Sam and I at some stage where we'll just fly too much. And you find most pilots with a lot of hours tend to not want to fly that much anymore. What will keep me wanting to fly is the true passion of conservation and that the combination of the joy of flying and flying for a reason and flying for another one of my passions will be a very good combination of everything I care about.
Mm. Ah, that sounds great.
Yeah, on paper.
Are, are there anything else you would like to share before we wrap up?
Flying is it's a very interesting, it's funny, I think it's one of the most bipolar careers on the planet. I think
What do you mean by that?
it's got such extremes, ups and downs. It's such moments of elation and boredom and frustration, and there's so much beauty and so much ugliness. There's dealing with maintenance issues, weather issues, staff issues, management issues, scheduling. It's the moments where you get to fly and share how beautiful it is are absolutely incredible. And they're
Mm,
much more few and far between than people understand. You know, you think, oh, you're a pilot, like all you do is fly around and have fun. But actually, it's a lot of the time it's, you know, stressing about weather or maintenance or jobs,
mm,
dynamic and volatile career that can be very rewarding for the right type of people. But
mm.
I think for the wrong type of people, it can be very stressful. Yeah.
Did you get to fly near Mauna Loa or Kilauea when it was erupting?
Yeah, it was funny though. I knew that they'd put up what we call a TFR quite soon after it erupted. So TFR is basically something that says you cannot fly in a certain area, and it's got like a fence and a height that you can't go in. So as soon
Mm.
as it started erupting, I said to my buddy, like, let's go right now. Uh, yeah, we got to see a pretty extraordinary view of the volcano. I mean, you could feel the heat and you could see the lava bubbling up, and yeah, it's something I'll remember for the rest of my life and feel very lucky to be in privy to.
My favorite part of these conversations is I ask the guest to leave a question for me and the viewers to contemplate on. Do you have one for us?
Leave a question for you and the guest to think about.
And no pressure if nothing's coming up right now.
Well, there's just one that Sam and I have been asking people recently. It's a little bit related to the interview. Everyone's out there chasing a financial goal and you're always just trying to climb the corporate ladder. Sam and I have kind of asked ourselves this question of, is there a certain amount of money that if you were just magically, it would appear in your bank account tomorrow, you would be
Mm,
happy and content and you would stop working?
mm.
Because for a lot of people, it's a high number, you know, $20 million. They think that'll make them happy. But a lot of people also just constantly keep pushing the bar out. And even if they said today they'd be happy with 1 million, when they got to 1 million, they'd want 2 million. So I think it just allows for a little bit of insight, how much value you draw from your financial side of life and kind of lets you take a step back and think you could actually be happy with a bit less than what you think you need, maybe.
That's great. How can people find you on social or follow you?
I'm just on Instagram, but I haven't posted in quite a while because I'm trying to
A
get off it.
hundred weeks.
Social media is pretty damaging to people.
It is. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, I think it can be used in the right way, but we've just read a lot of books and podcasts, and the generation now is in a pretty bad state. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
And social media has a lot to do with it.
yeah, yeah. So I think it just needs to be treated as the dangerous thing that it is, and then maybe it can be more
Mm.
positive. But that's kind of my views on that. But it's cool as well. I mean, if you look up the Dave Sheldrick Wildlife Trust on Instagram, they've got so many followers, and I know that creates so much money for them. So there's a hugely positive side to Instagram as well and social media.
Yeah. Sounds good.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Chad.
You're welcome. Mahalo,
Aloha.
Audrey, and so nice to
Mahalo.
see you, and we'll chat again soon.
Nice to see you.